Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, traders. Steve here at Logic FX Trading, and welcome to our weekly FX analysis. Let's just start with the economic calendar for the week, guys. Employment and unemployment, the United Kingdom tomorrow, days of 14th. Happy Valentine's Day, folks. We got GDP growth rate in the Eurozone and economic sentiment in Germany. Inflation in China, core inflation in the UK, Canada inflation, United States retail sales, and then FOMC minutes, employment, unemployment, and inflation. So there's a lot of inflation information coming out this week, guys. Need to keep an eye on that, particularly anything to do with the Eurozone and the dollar, because we're at that point. If we go over and we look at the, say, DXY, now we've been here for a few weeks or a month or so, guys. We're at that point where this will turn and start to drop. But when I say we're at that point, I mean somewhere in here, maybe even a little bit higher, over this period of time, this will eventually peak and it will start to drop. Now, I was a little bit concerned last week because I still think there's upside to this, folks. But I was a little bit concerned last week because there was a massive reaction on, I think it was Wednesday it might have been, this day, guys. Third, 11 days ago. Couldn't have been 11 days ago. Could well have been. Anyway, it was the 3rd. And Christine Lagarde came out talking about inflation in the EU, and she was a lot more hawkish than she had been previous to this, and we got this reaction. Now, prior to that, see this, for me, this was a pullback, and then we were looking for this to drop. Now, we did get that, but I didn't think it was enough, and I did say at the time that's not enough. We'll get a pullback, and then it will go. Now, we'll look at the whole thing, guys. So we're coming down here. For me, let's go to DXY because I have it better worked out in my head in DXY, guys. So for me, with from my way back here, with a 1-2, this was the 3rd wave coming up into here. So this was a 4th wave, and we needed a 5th. Now, is it possible that that's the 5th and we're done and the dollar's hit its peak? It is possible. The only thing I would say is, if you look at this as a whole, now remember it's a diagonal, guys. It's not an impulsive move. It's a diagonal it's a motive wave, but it's a diagonal. And yes, that isn't an impulse, a nice 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We know that, but Elliott doesn't always work out exactly right, guys. You got to take as much as you can off it and then make a decision based on it. So for me, with a 1, with a 2, with this move up, with a 1, perhaps a 2 there, a 3, a 4, and a 5 for us. So it's a 1, 2, 3. This was the 4th, and then that would have been the 5th. Problem with that being the 5th is, look at the size of the 1st wave. Look at the complexity of the 2nd wave, the 3rd wave. So if this is the 5th wave, no one is expecting it to just do that and then drop. It's going to be complex. It's going to be long drawn out, guys. So for me, when it come up to there and pulled back, I was expecting another push up, something more like that. Maybe even more of a, more of a diagonal. And then we'll get to our top and it'll run flat for a while and then it'll start to come off on the higher time scale, guys. Now, when the ECB came out last week, they were a lot more hawkish than the market expected, and you got movement on the German bond market. We had this happen, guys. So if we take that in reverse, what we were talking about there, with that being my proposed 4th wave, and we'll just clean it up so we can see what's going on here. right? So I had that, which for me was the first wave of the fifth wave. So this is our fourth wave, and this is the first wave out of it. Just about broke the bottom. Is it possible that that's it? Well, it is possible, guys, but I think it's unlikely. Then we got that pull back. So for me, that was the second wave. It could become more complex, but that was the second wave. First wave, second wave of the fifth, and then we'd get another wave down, and then we get a fifth wave down. Maybe a diagonal, maybe impulsive. That's what I was looking for. Coming down into, well, if we go to DXY, I was saying, in around 100, maybe a little bit higher. So looking for there. There was the target. So we got the one back down. Third wave's usually a bit bigger. Fourth wave, fifth wave. Maybe it hits there. Maybe it falls short. And then we have transition period. And then the euro starts to drop later in the year. Okay, that's what I had in my head. Now, let's go back to this euro. When they come out on Wednesday, Thursday, whatever it was last week sometime, guys. I'm only doing these weekly, so sometimes I can get the days mixed up. But when that happened on the 3rd of February, I'll just pause you and see. Okay, so it was the Wednesday before. So it was 2 weeks, this Wednesday come up 2 weeks ago. So we got that push up when I was expecting this to drop. And I'd actually taken this short from here, expecting that trade. And then it took off within, an hour or two. It came up to there, and I thought to myself, I'm not closing that. I put a stop loss above there, guys. But I said to myself, this is going to come back down again. And, maybe it ends up running flat in there somewhere, but it's not doing that anytime soon. It's not taking off in that direction anytime soon, as far as I'm concerned, guys. Can I be wrong? Well, of course it can be wrong, but it's not what I think. So if we take this back out to the 1 hour time scale, yes, we're getting a little bit of a pullback this morning, but I'm also not concerned about that. As we had this, I rode through it, we got that, and when that happened, everybody was buying long. And I wasn't brave enough to short it again, guys, because it had quite a sizable position on it. And they just said, no, well, let's just see what happens. And I've got stop loss there, and whatever happens, happens. So I didn't add to the position, which with hindsight I should have. It's dropped, come back, dropped, come back, dropped. It's pulling back at the minute, guys. It'll continue to drop. And I suspect it will at least get to there and probably further down, guys. Now, there's several reasons for that to happen. Number one is I think the market overreacted. The ECB are not going to, suddenly hike the Fed. And then over and above that, we've the whole situation with the Ukraine at the minute, guys. If that kicks off and everybody's saying it's going to, everyone except the person who can make it happen, Putin, he's saying, no, we're not going to invade, but everybody else thinks they're going to invade. The Americans have pulled out their people and told any American nationals to get out. The UK's done the same. I'm sure Australia, New Zealand, France, Germany have all done the same thing. If you're a foreign national in there, get out, because we'll not be able to rescue you once the invasion happens. If there's an invasion, it's not going to be good for the stock market, but it will be good for the dollar, because you'll get a move into safety into the dollar, guys. Now, that's not the only reason that I would trade this short, but it's a Brucey bonus, if you understand what I mean. If that happens, and nobody wants it to happen, obviously, but if it does happen, this will take off in that direction and not take off in that direction. So there's a lot of headwinds, guys. The dollar's a safe haven. The Fed's, moving before the. In fact, you know what? I must have had that alarm over there last weekend when we were doing that recording. They don't tend to move these during the week. So this will continue to drop, guys. Do you jump into it here? No, I wouldn't jump into it here. If you're in it from up there, fantastic. If you're like me, I was nearly back to break even here. We're getting a bit of a reaction this morning. I'm not going to overreact to that. I have a stop loss, above it. So if it takes off, I'm not going to lose that much. This may well just give us a setup here for the next one down. Okay, so in DXY, obviously then what we're looking for here is we're getting that little pullback, guys. It's just normal. Maybe it gives us a setup for this. If I'm wrong, and it is possible, obviously, because that looks like it wants to do that. They don't always do that, but it's I'm a little bit wary of it. But yeah, that's how I see it at the moment. I'm in it, so I'm staying in it. And I do believe that the dollar will continue to strengthen for a few months yet, guys, before we hit the bottom and then we go. That could be the bottom, but I doubt it. Now, there's just one other thing I want to say about this. And I say this often, but just in case anyone hasn't listened to me before. We trade structures, guys. And I'm not really sure what I drew there. let me draw it like this, nice and clean. Right, we trade structures. So that's an impulse. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. As things near the end, depending on the time scale, obviously, but the higher the time scale, the more you got to be wary of coming into the end part, guys. Is this the point where it turns here? Does it turn here? And that becomes problematic. When you have your fundamental that says you're going to get an impulse here, then, down here, trading here into your third wave, fantastic. But if you get close to the end of that third wave, start to be wary because you're going to get a correction. You don't know whether it's going to be a diagonal, it's going to come deep. You don't know if it's going to come there and come back. So once you've got into something, you then need to start thinking about when it's going to turn. So the situation with DXY is that I think it's going to turn sometime this year, within the next 3-4 months. Is that the top? I don't know. I don't think so. I think it's got more up to go, guys. But it's possible that that's the top and this is the start of the pullback. But I don't think it's probable. It's for all the reasons I just said. It's not enough. We need more. This needs to be more. This needs to be more complicated for a fifth wave. Maybe it ends up running into some sort of ending diagonal, and then eventually it goes, guys. So into March, April, May, June, sometime we'll start to look for the top of DXY, and then it drops. So, having said all of that, what do we do with the rest of them? Well, as you can see here, I've been calling this short. It's hanging around. There's upside to the pound, so I wouldn't trade this one, guys. Maybe it drops, maybe it doesn't. That's not the one to trade. For me, it was the euro. The Aussie, same thing. We were looking for it to drop. You see where the alarm line is. It started to move. It hasn't moved much yet, but if you were in it, get your stop to zero. See if it continues to go. New Zealand, same thing, guys. We said we've had a pullback. We were looking for it to drop from there. It didn't happen. Pushed on up a little bit. Started to happen now. I think there's more downside to that. It'll probably break that bottom and go, if I'm right about DXY. CAD, different story, guys. The CAD the dollar's pushing up against the CAD, but the oil price is really high, guys. So don't be looking for too much. Don't be betting against the CAD. Can it continue to push on up? Yeah, it can, but it's not a good bet because you're betting long against long. US Swiss, this is also problematic. Reason being that if they start to worry about a war, you probably get a move into gold, which always boosts the Swiss franc. It's also a safe haven, guys. So then you're trading safe haven against safe haven. No point in trading that. US Swedish, look at it. It's always brilliant. I don't trade it often enough, guys, but it gives you good moves. So there you have it. Last week we said, well, it's probably going to go long from here, but you could get one down before it goes. And I kind of did both, guys, in that it didn't come away down there, but it went and then it came, kind of halfway down. Didn't break the bottom, but off it went again. So if anybody got involved here, you've done really well for yourself. It's come in up to there. The target was obviously there where I've put the line, guys. Scribbled in the line. I scribble because it's much, much faster, to get the information across rather than putting nice lines in, guys. So there you go. What's going to happen next? Well, we'll maybe get a pull back here, but I would look to see if we're going to get that. If the dollar is going to continue to strengthen, we will get another one up, but don't be jumping into it here. The yen, well, the yen's pulled back a little bit, but it's also a safe haven, guys. It could well run flat, but just looking at this, I think your next move's there, guys. China, now, I'm a little bit disappointed in this. I've actually bought into this one as well, folks. In here somewhere, don't know exactly where, but it's been up and down and up and down and up and down. It's down at the moment. I'm looking for this to break out. Bump, pull back, and off it goes. China's actually putting money into their economy at the minute, and the US is taking money out of the economy. Well, that's the plan going forward. Tightening and can't remember the other side of tightening, guys. Loosening. But the Chinese are having problems with growth at the minute, so they're loosening monetary policy, putting liquidity into the system, which should devalue the Chinese renminbi or yuan, depending what you want to call it, guys. So, and because I'm looking for upside to the dollar, I'm looking for this to break out and go long. If we look at it on a higher time scale, oops, that's too much. Let's go to 4 hours. You can see where it's been coming down and coming down and coming down. For me, it's getting ready to break out. So I've bought into it. I'm a few dollars down at the minute, but I'm looking for that to go. On the other one, we'll get to it in a minute. Gold, well, we were looking for it to push up. Did push up. I don't buy gold, guys. I buy gold mining companies or ETFs or what have you. I've been in a few for a long time, just hoping maybe even get. Listen, if things go bad with the stock market, either because of inflation or because of maybe a war kicks off, then you will see gold taken off, folks. So I'll probably just leave those gold mining stocks in there, and with silver. I've got a silver ETF, and I'll leave them on and see if they balance out. Obviously, they're not big enough to lift the account, but they'll balance out some of the downside of the stock market, which hopefully the bets on the dollar will do as well. And silver as well, we're getting a push up, looking for it to break and go. Bitcoin, is that the bottom of Bitcoin? Quite possibly. I've a very strange relationship with Bitcoin because I convince myself of it and I buy into it, and then 3 days later, I chicken out of it and I get out of it again. And that's been my relationship with it from a way back over here somewhere, guys. The start of 2020, a year ago is when I started getting involved in it. I did call it here when it was up here. I said, because I drew those lines in and I said, listen, guys, you don't know that something's going to happen, but you have a plan for it. If this thing happens, then I will consider buying. So in other words, if this were to continue to go up there, well, I wasn't getting involved because I certainly wasn't going to buy in up there, because that was the peak, that was the all-time high. There's no way I was buying there. But what I said at the time was that this could move up in a diagonal after the impulse. There's the impulse. So is it now going to start to, move up and then eventually some sort of running flat, even possibly, guys, and then eventually take off? There's as many people would say it's going to 100,000 and even higher as there are who's saying it's worthless and it'll go to zero. So far, the people who are saying it'll go to 100,000 have been right compared to the people who said it was worthless and was going to nothing. People back here were calling 100,000 and they were laughed at, and I laughed at them as well, guys. When it was 4,000 and 5,000 after the peak, it was like, well, there's the peak. It's come back to reality. It's done and dusted. It's going to zero. And look what it did. So is this the turn to make the next move up? Possibly. Possibly. That's I'm not saying anything else. I haven't bought into it. I mine a little bit of ETH, guys, which I used to convert into altcoins. I suppose ETH is a bit of an altcoin, but anything that's not Bitcoin is altcoin, isn't it? But I used to convert, and I'm now hanging on to the ETH because I do think there's more upside to this. Oil. Come off this morning, folks, but I wouldn't write too much into that. Look where it is. 94. We said it'll get to 100. That's supposed to say 100 there. We said it'll get to 100 from way back down from here. We said it was going to 100. We did get a pull back, which looks a little bit more dramatic because we're sitting in the 1 hour time scale. But if you come out, it just climbed and climbed and climbed from when it hit zero. And I lost money down there, guys, because when it was here at $20 a barrel, I used logic and said, well, hang on a minute. The world needs oil. It can't go below $20 a barrel. And of course, it went below zero. And we all got stung. And then I chickened out of trading it again, guys. But obviously, it was going to recover from down there. And anyone that bought it down there will have done really well for themselves. So it's pushed up and up and up. It needs another correction, guys. Is it going to happen this week? Well, we don't know that this is necessarily the start of the pullback, but it does need another correction. If there's a war, I imagine it's going to spike. It'll push up and it'll probably hit its all-time high, and then it'll start to come off again. Is there going to be a war? Well, I don't know. Russia would really, really be putting all their eggs in one basket by invading the Ukraine, but maybe that's where Putin is. Nothing to do with Russia, guys. It's all to do with Putin. But him clinging on to power, like Mugabe and people like that. They'll do anything for power, guys. They're nuts. You know, give me 20 million quid and I'm away for enjoy the rest of my life. These guys can have 20 billion quid and they still want more. I don't understand them, guys. But maybe that's why they have 20 billion and I don't. EuroCAD, bit of a sticky one, guys. If I'm right on the dollar, then this will drop, as I was indicating last week. When we got to there, I said this will drop. Now, there is the possibility that that's just a correction of that, and then the next one's up. But I don't think so, guys. I think this is just going to continue to drop as the dollar goes along, the euro will drop. Euro Oz. You know, look at it, guys. It just wants to drop, doesn't it? But listen, I'm not trading it. So Euro New Zealand, same thing. I think it will drop. The Aussie would probably be a better bet. Euro Yen, that's been quite a pullback in the yen. Now, if there's a shooting war in the Ukraine, the yen will take will shoot up, guys, as it's a safe haven along with the dollar and the yen. Looks like a long time since I moved that. It's coming back down. It's in this range. No, not for me. If I'm wrong about the dollar, then that's possibly a good bet. But don't be getting involved in it. Well, you buy that and you go against the yen. Say you bought that long, and you go against the yen, expecting it to recover. And then the next thing you know, war's just kicked out in Ukraine, and the yen it takes off in that direction. I wouldn't take too many risks this week, guys. Euro Swiss, same thing. When we were up there, I said it'll pull back, and then maybe it gives us a setup to go. It's pulled back, back to where it's more or less indicating that I would be looking for. Is it now time to trade that long? Well, when we were here, coming down here, I kept saying, I'll trade this when we get a breakout and a setup. Well, we got a breakout, but unfortunately it broke that bottom, which kind of put me off a little bit. And now we've had this and back. Is this going to give us a diagonal? Is it going to start doing that? I don't know, but I'm not brave enough to buy it. Brave enough's not the right word. I don't know enough about it to want to buy it. Pound CAD, pound's holding up rightly, guys. They're hiking rates. They're hawkish. So I wouldn't bet against the pound, but I'm also not necessarily that keen on trading it. Pound Oz, I said it from way back here, it would run flat. Last week, it looks like I said, listen, if it pulls back, it potentially could be a setup to go long. But if you look at this, is this something that's going to do that, guys? No, I'd leave that alone. Pound New Zealand. See, the New Zealand isn't as strong as the Aussie these days, and that's why you haven't got that same structure. Is that a little flat that's come down? That's your C wave, and you're already in the next wave up? Possibly. Problem is, if you didn't get involved down there, do you really want to jump in there so close to there? We were looking for a pullback in this, potentially to trade it long. Didn't really get it, but I'm not convinced by that either. Just move that over. Pound Euro. Pound's moving it up quite nicely against the euro. Yet again, there was that big move by, off the back of the Fed's hawkishness. And ever since that, we've got this continually pushing away from it, guys. It's back to that thing. If I'm wrong and the euro strengthens, the dollar drops, then this will do that. If I'm right, and that was a false dawn, as it were, a fault, they moved too soon, then this will continue to go long. Pound yen, nice little pullback. Was looking for something maybe a little bit deeper in order to trade it long. It hasn't come deeper so far, but it's not really a setup for me that I would want, and it's not something I particularly want to get involved in at the minute. I've 3 trades on, by the way, guys. We've talked about 2 of them. The dollar against the Chinese yuan, dollar against the euro, both long, and the other one's the CAD against the Swiss, which, with hindsight, I probably wouldn't take because gold prices gone up and there's the event of the war, but I took it last week when I thought the war wasn't going to happen. Aussie Yen, yet again, guys, this will go long if there's no war. If there's a war, it'll drop. Aussie New Zealand, I keep saying it every week. I wish it was long in this. Called it long from way back here. Got involved here somewhere. Chickened out again. Well, I keep saying chicken out, guys. I put stop losses to 0. And when it hits, it hits. So stop loss was hit, it got taken out, and since it's continued to go. But what we did say back here was that if we didn't get a setup for this to go long, chances are it would just continue to run up like that, which is more or less what it's done. It went flat there, but then it continued to move on up. And this pair moves this way. Seems to be at least once a year it moves like this, guys, because there's quite a few times over the years I've traded this and got frustrated by the way that it moves. Look at that, guys. Look at that one in there. I can remember being in this and being stuck in it. And I think I took my profit in there somewhere, but then I missed the second leg off it. I missed all of that. So, yeah, you need to be patient with these things, guys. This is just running and running and running. It's up against that at the moment, so it's obviously not a great place to get involved. But if it were to come off it a little bit, I think there's more upside to this. It possibly could just keep doing that, guys. Remember, it doesn't necessarily respect the line. Well, it doesn't respect the line. What it does is that the line is put there by us, as trying to give us an idea of a structure, but it doesn't mean it won't break through it and keep running, guys. But what I'm thinking is that if it were to do something like that, if it were to do that, then I'd be really keen to try and trade it long. Aussie Swiss, it's just running flat, guys. And for all the reasons we talked about, I'm not going to try and trade against the Swiss. Yeah, we called that long. We're in 4 hours here. We called that long, although I did say that I don't trade this pair because I don't have a handle on it. The differential between the two. Fundamentally, that's what we're talking about fundamentally. Swiss yen, well, we said it would go long. Did say there might be a bit more downside to it. Anyone that went long here or here or here, if you went long here, you're breaking even. Let me zoom in a bit. Oops. Took something out there. I do have one issue with this, and that issue is that circle that I drew. I would have drawn that when we got to there, and I'd have done something like that and put a circle in and said, when this corrects back down again, I'll think about going long here. Now, the issue I've noticed when I get a little bit closer is this. I don't like this. This can continue to go like that, but often when you've had a nice move down like that, you'll get a pull back, and then you get another nice move down, guys, and then it goes. So I'm a little bit wary. So maybe if it got to there, I'd be more keen to get involved in it. CAD Swiss. All right, I'm long on this. So far, I have a 100% record in CAD Swiss. Now, obviously, I'm going to get it wrong at some point. Is this the point that I get it wrong? Well, possibly. The reason I've got involved is it's running on a flat. It had impulsed away from the bottom, and it was doing for me what was a setup to break out and go long. So that's why I got involved in it. Is that what's going to happen? Well, if it weren't for the concern about Ukraine, then I would say, yeah, this is a good bet. Because we weren't expecting any moves in gold, because it hasn't been. You know, the underlying economy of the US is good, folks. There are problems that have been created by the shutdown and then trying to get the efficiencies of our economy up and running again. We've got logistic problems. It's creating inflation, which obviously the central banks have to react against, because if they leave it too late, then it runs away. If they overreact to it, they kill the economy. But the underlying economy of the US is running well, guys. It's good. So we haven't had the big move in the gold that you would get if people stopped believing in the US economy and they were pulling out of stocks and they start putting it into safe havens. That's not happening at the minute, folks. So, well, up until last week, that isn't happening. But throw in on top of that a potential war, and maybe we're starting to see gold starting to move, and therefore you potentially upside to the Swiss franc. But I wasn't looking for any upside to the Swiss franc last week. But this week, potentially there is. And therefore, I wouldn't necessarily get involved in it this week. Because if there's a shooting war, this could potentially do that, guys. So obviously I'm going to have a stop loss under there somewhere. And if it takes off, then I'm out. But if there's no shooting war, I think this could well run up. This week's dodgy. So if you're in something, then tighten your stops, guys. If you're not in something, maybe just this week, leave things alone. Do we see what happens over the next couple of weeks about Ukraine, guys? So, CAD Yen, same story there, guys. I'd look for that to break out long, other than the fact that potentially there's a war. New Zealand, same thing, guys. Looking for it to go long. We got it to go long there, but it's pulling back. Let's wait and see. New Zealand CAD. This is one I don't know anything about, guys. So, New Zealand Swiss. Yet again, looking for this to go long, but with what's happening at the moment, I'm going to take all that off. I'm going to keep the powder dry on this in case there's a shooting more, because if there's a shooting more, this will take off short. What's LMT? Oh, Lockheed. Sorry, I was doing an analysis of Lockheed Martin. See that pre-market, guys? If you go across, the board on the American stocks, there's no pre-market there. That one's slightly up. Shut down. Volkswagen's European. Valero slightly down. See this Valero Energy, guys? I was in it from way back. Where was that? Was that March 2020? Way back over here somewhere, guys. Last year. I went through that dip and up and up, and I think that's where I bought into it. Yeah, that'll be the level I bought into. Maybe it was there I bought into it. Anyway, with up I believed in it. I believed it was going long. Then I went through all of this. When I got back to here, I got out of it for a break even. Look what's happened since, guys. There's the profit. It came back down again to where I bought. You need to be patient, guys. Believe in your analysis. There's the profit, and potentially more. Obviously, you put your stop to zero, or maybe move it up a little bit more. There's the profit there, guys. Bale's another one I was in. Rode through all of this, and then anyway, I digress. That'll do us for the week, guys. Keep an eye out for that war. I'm still bullish on the dollar. Speak to next week. Bye for now.